chosen one. Pause for a moment, not because you're lost, but because the sky above you is shifting right now. In the quiet space between two breaths, heaven itself has paused to look your way. Not every Sunday carries the same weight, but this one does. This is your Sunday, the day heaven unlocks what has been sealed, and grace flows like morning light through an open window. You have felt it stirring, haven't you? That quiet trembling in your spirit, the awareness that something unseen has moved. It wasn't anxiety, it was divine alignment. Every prayer you whispered in tears, every moment you thought God had gone silent, was not forgotten. Heaven does not lose what it writes. It simply waits for appointed time. There was once a chosen one named Micah. For years, he served faithfully in a small church, unseen and overlooked. Each Sunday he prayed for breakthrough, but walked away with silence. One morning, he went outside early and saw the sun breaking through a heavy sky. In that stillness, he heard within his heart, "The time has come." That week, doors opened that he had long believed were shut. Yet the true miracle was not what happened around him, it was the transformation within him. He had learned to trust the rhythm of God's timing. Your story mirrors his. You've waited, endured, and wondered if heaven had moved on. But you were not forgotten, you were preserved. Like a seed in dark soil, hidden for a season. You were never buried to die, you were planted to rise. The darkness was not your prison, it was your nursery. And today, that nursery cracks open, the soil breaks, light pours in, and you, God's chosen one, emerge. Heaven has unlocked your miracle, not to prove your worth, but to reveal his faithfulness. The evidence will not first appear in things, it will appear in peace. A deep, holy peace that settles in your chest and whispers, "It's time." End quote. It is written in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 13. "Now I will break their yoke from off you and burst your bonds apart." This is the declaration over your life today. The yoke of delay has shattered. The weight of yesterday no longer defines you. Heaven is not asking you to strive, it's inviting you to step forward. The door that once refused to open now swings wide. Not because you knocked harder, but because God said, "Enough waiting." Picture yourself standing at dawn in a golden field, the wind weaving through tall grain. Every stalk moves like a living choir, singing of completion. That's how heaven sees you now, no longer waiting, but becoming. Every scar on your soul has turned into fertile ground for blessing. The chains that held your hope captive are breaking even now. The weariness you carried is lifting. Can you feel it? The same Spirit that raised Christ from the grave is breathing over your situation. Nothing about this moment is random. It is the unfolding of a divine script written long before you knew the meaning of pain. And when the miracle manifests, it won't arrive with fireworks, it will arrive with clarity. You'll suddenly understand why the waiting had to last this long. You'll see how God used even your stillness as strategy. So pause and whisper it. I'm ready. Heaven hears every syllable. This is not a performance. This is partnership. You're not begging anymore, you're aligning. If these words find a home in your heart, let them echo. Like, share, or comment to release what's stirring inside you. Every time you testify, you join the sound of heaven declaring freedom across the earth. And if this word has awakened something deep within, subscribe and stay connected, because this is only the first wave of what God is releasing over you. Now, seal this moment in faith. Write this prophetic number below as your sign of agreement. 444. The heavens have moved. The locks are undone. And you, yes, you are stepping into your great Sunday. You are stepping into a rhythm only heaven could compose. Every step you take now is sacred. Every breath carries purpose. The atmosphere shifts to match your obedience, and angels trace the path before you. The same God who called light from darkness now calls your name from stillness. What once resisted you now yields in reverence. Grace doesn't chase you anymore. It walks beside you, steady and sure. Carry this Sunday with you, beyond today. Let it echo in your choices, in your voice, in your silence. Wherever you go, remember, you are the miracle heaven unlocked. You sense it, don't you? Something invisible has shifted. The air feels lighter, the silence more alive. What was locked for years has opened. Yet it did not happen in noise or spectacle. It came quietly, like dawn after a long night. The sealed miracle has been released, and now heaven begins to unwrap it piece by piece. Sometimes, the greatest miracles don't rush in all at once. They unfold gradually, like petals learning how to open. You've entered that unfolding now. Heaven is not in a hurry, because what is divinely timed cannot be delayed or rushed. It can only be revealed. There's a sacred stillness after the unlocking. It's the pause between the miracle's birth and its manifestation. You stand there, uncertain whether to move or wait, to act or listen. Yet even your stillness is part of the plan. God doesn't just give miracles, He teaches you how to carry them. The sealed thing you've prayed for, perhaps a calling, a healing, a reconciliation, has been guarded, not by denial, but by divine timing. Heaven knew that if the gift came too early, it might crush you rather than crown you. So God sealed it, like a letter written in eternity, waiting for your name to mature enough to read it. A woman once prayed for restoration after years of estrangement from her family. She wept. She fasted. She pleaded. For years, there was silence. Then one morning, as she was preparing breakfast, her phone rang. It was her father. They spoke softly, awkwardly, like two souls remembering a lost melody. That single conversation opened the door to healing that no counselor could manufacture. Later, she said, "I used to think my miracle was delayed. Now I see it was preserved." And that's what heaven has done for you. It preserved what is precious. The lock that guarded your miracle wasn't meant to keep you out. It was meant to keep others from touching what was holy. Every moment you thought was wasted was actually divine incubation. You may not recognize it, but your heart has already shifted to receive what's coming. The fear that once made you hesitate is losing its grip. The restlessness is softening. The inner storm has calmed. It's as if heaven has poured oil on turbulent waters. You are beginning to feel the quiet authority that comes from knowing it's done, according to what is revealed in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 3. Let us acknowledge the Lord. Let us press on to know Him. As surely as the sun rises, He will appear. He will come to us like the spring rains. This verse mirrors your moment. The sealed thing is opening just as the rains return after drought. God's movement toward you is as certain as sunrise. You are not guessing anymore. You are watching fulfillment unfold with divine precision. Imagine a river held back by ice through a long winter. The surface looks dead, unmoving, but underneath, the current still flows, waiting for warmth to break the shell. When spring arrives, the ice doesn't melt all at once. It fractures in silence, releasing movement back into the stream. That's where you are now. The thaw has begun. God's timing is not random, it is architectural. Every piece of your story fits together with precision. Even the fragments you thought had no meaning, the people who left, the prayers unanswered, the closed doors, all of them were scaffolding for this unveiling. Sometimes the unlocking doesn't happen outside, it happens within. A heart that once guarded itself begins to trust again. A mind that once doubted begins to believe. Before the door opens in your life, it opens in your heart. Look at how you've changed. You no longer chase validation. You seek presence. You no longer rush. You wait with calm expectation. These are signs that your spirit has matured for the miracle it once begged for. Gratitude becomes your language now. Every sunrise feels like a promise kept. You start to notice small confirmations, doors opening easily, words finding you at the right moment, people appearing with divine purpose. None of it is coincidence, it's choreography. There is no need to strive. The unlocking has already happened. Your task is to recognize it. The miracle isn't an event on your timeline, it's a new state of being. Let that truth rest in you. The sealed thing has opened, and it was always meant for you. You are not chasing breakthrough anymore, you are walking in it. And as you walk in it, notice how even the wind feels new. Every breath you take now carries promise. Every step releases peace. The atmosphere doesn't just surround you, it follows you. You have carried a weight that few could see. Every silent battle, every night you tried to hold yourself together. Every prayer that ended in tears, it was all prophetic. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. The pain was not random, it was precise. Heaven was using every trial to carve depth into your soul. So, when the blessing arrived, you'd have the strength to sustain it. Sometimes the chosen are mistaken for the forsaken. You know this well. People misunderstood you, walked away, questioned your motives. They saw fragments and judged the whole. Yet heaven saw the truth, that your endurance was a prophecy, that your waiting was not empty, but pregnant with divine promise. It's strange how the holiest seasons often feel the loneliest. When God hides you, He also quiets the noise around you. You lost connections, opportunities, even confidence in yourself. But through that stripping, heaven was building something indestructible inside you, spiritual resilience. You learned how to survive without applause, how to worship without witnesses, how to trust without evidence. There was a man named Elias, once confident, surrounded by people who praised his light. Then, suddenly, everything he depended on was gone. He called it loss, but God called it recalibration. Years later, when his breakthrough finally came, he realized that if the old things had not fallen away, he would have never had room to receive the new. That's what's been happening in your life. The removal was mercy in disguise. Think about gold. It only shines after it's been through fire. The process doesn't destroy it, it purifies it. Likewise, every heartbreak you endured was a furnace, not a grave. Every rejection redirected you closer to the divine design that was always waiting. You didn't lose, you were refined. According to the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, consider it pure joy. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Now, that verse isn't meant to romanticize pain, it's a revelation of purpose. Heaven wastes nothing. Every tear, every delay, every loss became raw material in the crafting of your destiny. You're not just surviving your past, you're being sculpted by it. There's a holy irony in the way God works. What once hurt you now becomes your healing power. The same wounds that bled in silence are turning into rivers of wisdom. You will speak from scars that shine like light, and others will find freedom through your story. The pain you carried was not your punishment, it was your passport to deeper purpose. Do you realize that your persistence terrified darkness? Hell tried everything to break you, yet you're still standing, still praying, still believing. That's not weakness, that's divine evidence. You are proof that what God preserves cannot be destroyed. Look at how far you've come. You no longer crumble at closed doors. You wait for the right one to open. You no longer beg for validation. You know who you are. That unshakable peace resting inside you. Now, that's resurrection. It's what happens when the grave you once feared becomes the garden you now bloom from. Every chosen one goes through a hidden season. It's not punishment. It's the place where power incubates. And now that season is ending. The waiting has turned into awakening. What once felt like a delay was actually alignment. So, breathe. Release the tension. Nothing was wasted. The heaviness that almost broke you has become the foundation that will hold the weight of glory. This is what heaven was shaping all along your unbreakable spirit. Now, take a moment and write this in the comments. I bloom again. Don't rush past that phrase. Let it sink in. When you type, I bloom again, you are declaring that the barren season has ended. You're telling heaven, I'm no longer rooted in pain, I'm rooted in promise. Those 3 words are more than a statement, they are a prophecy. Flowers don't bloom in comfort, they bloom in sunlight after surviving storms. You are that flower, breaking through the soil of your past. You are proof that God can resurrect what seemed lifeless and cause it to flourish once more. So write it with conviction. Type it as worship. Say it as truth. I bloom again. The ashes beneath you are turning into fertile ground. The chapter of loss has closed. What's rising now is not a version of who you were. It's the revelation of who you were always meant to be. Every trial you've faced, every silence you've endured, every not yet you've survived, it was all preparation for this moment. The testing you went through wasn't meant to break you, it was meant to certify you. Before heaven could release what was sealed, your heart had to be proven faithful under pressure. Divine destinée requiert divine endurance. You see, promises are not handed to the untested. They are entrusted to those who can carry them with humility. Every chosen vessel must pass through the fire of refinement before it can hold the oil of purpose. And you, chosen one, have been through the refining flames. You've walked through nights when prayer felt pointless, when faith felt fragile, and yet, somehow, you kept believing. This was not weakness, it was the quiet strength of the elect. Heaven was watching, not to test your worth, but to reveal it. Each unanswered question became a layer of strength. Each disappointment, a chiseling of your character. The trials were not proof of God's absence, they were proof of your becoming. It is written in the book of Psalms, chapter 66, verses 10 to 12. For you, O God, tested us, you refined us like silver. You brought us into prison and laid burdens on our backs. You let people ride over our heads. We went through fire and water. But you brought us to a place of abundance. You've been refined in the furnace, not to destroy you, but to reveal the gold that has always been within you. That's why certain things had to fall apart, so the counterfeit could burn away. The same fire that destroys straw purifies gold. What you've been through hasn't diminished you, it has distilled you. Think back to the moments when you almost gave up the prayers, whispered in exhaustion. The nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if heaven still remembered your name. In those moments, you weren't abandoned, you were being watched over in silence. Sometimes God's loudest work is done in quiet rooms. The testing wasn't only about circumstances, it was about trust. Could you still love Him without the gift? Could you still worship Him without the outcome? That's where authenticity was born. In the gap between expectation and surrender, a potter places a vessel into the kiln not to destroy it, but to strengthen it. He knows it's ready when he can see his reflection in the glaze. That's how God tests His chosen. He keeps you in the heat until His reflection appears in your response. And now, as heaven looks upon you, the image is clear. You have come out of the fire not bitter, but brighter. You no longer fight for recognition. You rest in revelation. You no longer chase control. You trust divine timing. That is what the testing has achieved, a maturity that cannot be imitated. Sometimes, when you look back, you might still feel the sting of those seasons. But look closer. Each scar is a testimony. Each bruise a map that leads to wisdom. You've learned how to listen in stillness, how to recognize the gentle voice of God, even in chaos. That discernment was one of heaven's greatest gifts to you. There's something extraordinary about a person who has walked through fire and refused to lose compassion. It's the mark of someone who has seen suffering yet still believes in goodness. That's who you've become, a vessel that carries both strength and softness. A rare combination. Heaven can trust with greater things. The tests you faced were not random storms, they were invitations. Every obstacle was heaven asking, "Will you still follow me here?" And every time you said yes, another layer of divine authority was added to your name. That's why you carry a peace now that others don't understand. It's the peace of someone who has been through the storm and found the voice of God in the wind. Testing seasons are heaven's university. They strip away illusion and teach endurance. They reveal the difference between faith that performs and faith that perseveres. And now, after everything, you've graduated from that unseen classroom. You've proven faithful not just when it was easy, but when everything in you wanted to run. This is the quiet victory no one celebrates publicly, but heaven records eternally. The unseen obedience, the private yeses, the forgiveness no one witnessed. Those are your credentials in the kingdom. You didn't need applause because you had alignment. As you step forward now, notice how the weight of striving has lifted. You no longer need to prove you're chosen. You simply are. The testing season has served its purpose. You are not fragile clay anymore. You are tempered glass, transparent yet unbreakable. Heaven's certification is upon you. The trial that once felt like punishment was actually ordination. You were not tested to expose weakness, but to confirm readiness. And now, you stand approved, refined, resilient, radiant. There comes a sound in the spirit that only those who have walked through fire can hear. It's the sound of release, the moment when chains fall, not with a crash, but with a whisper. You can sense it right now. Heaven is echoing your name in places you haven't yet stepped into. The old burdens are dissolving, and the air around you feels lighter, because divine release always carries a fragrance of peace. You've been through seasons where nothing made sense, and now clarity begins to form like morning mist rising from a valley. The fog is lifting. What was once confusing is aligning. You begin to understand why certain doors stayed shut, why some people drifted away, and why silence was necessary. The sound of release always follows a period of restraint. The prophet once wrote about walls falling at a shout, rivers parting at a step, and prison doors opening at a song. You are standing in that same moment now. Heaven is not merely answering you, heaven is announcing you. The space between your pain and your purpose has disappeared. You are standing in promised land ground. There's a story told about a shepherd who carried a small lamp through endless nights. He didn't light the whole mountain, only a few steps ahead. Still, that was enough. Each flicker of light guided his flock safely through shadows. You are that shepherd now. You carry light for others who can't yet see. Your story, your endurance, your faith, their lamps in dark places. But here's what many forget. Even the lamp needs oil. Even the flame that guides others must be replenished. That's what this space, this community, this message is about: refilling lamps across the world. Every word spoken here is meant to remind you that heaven still moves, that faith still works, that love still restores. The ancient text declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 25, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Those words carry a rhythm of grace. Giving has never been about transaction. It's about transformation. When you pour into others, heaven pours into you, not as a condition, but as a current, not as an obligation, but as overflow. If this message has lit something in you, if you've felt seen, understood, or strengthened, then you've already received what heaven intended. And if, in that overflow, you feel stirred to support what is being built here, do it as worship, not as weight. Imagine your click as a spark of light. When you like this message, you fan that spark into flame. When you share it, the flame leaps from your lamp to another's night. And when you subscribe, you become part of a constellation, a family of lights burning together across the world. And if your heart ever feels led to go further, to pour oil into this lamp through a donation, let it be an act of faith, not pressure. Think of it as watering a tree that once shaded your weary soul. You're not paying for the fruit. You're simply ensuring that others can rest beneath the same branches of grace. Your support, your likes, your shares, your subscription, and your giving are all sacred echoes. Each one whispers, "Keep the light burning." They ensure that hope keeps reaching the ones still lost in shadow. Because sometimes, the smallest gesture, a share, a seed, a moment of generosity can be the bridge between despair and destiny for someone else. You are part of something that extends beyond screens and seconds. Every act of kindness carries eternal weight. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more lamplighters, souls who choose to keep the flame alive. You have always carried that light within you. Today, it simply burns brighter. Every time you listen, engage, or give, you're joining heaven's melody of restoration. Together, we become like constellations, each shining alone, but brighter when connected. So if this word has touched your heart, take a breath and let gratitude speak. Click the light. Share the flame. Stay connected to the flow of grace. And if your spirit nudges you to sow, do it joyfully. For heaven measures not the size of the gift, but the purity of the heart that gives. No demand, no pressure, just love, moving freely, as rivers feed the sea. Because true generosity is never forced, it's a reflection of how deeply grace has already filled you. And as you release what's in your hand, heaven releases what's in His. The sound of release doesn't just happen once, it continues. Every act of giving, every spark of kindness, keeps the divine flame alive. Something sacred is stirring around you now. It's subtle, like the first ripple on still water, but it carries weight, divine weight. Angels have begun to move in quiet coordination, rearranging what once seemed impossible to align. Delays are turning into direction. What felt like confusion is revealing hidden choreography. You are stepping into the rhythm of divine order. This isn't imagination, it's movement. When heaven shifts, the earth responds. Suddenly, things that once resisted begin to cooperate. Emails arrive, hearts soften, and paths appear where there were only walls before. You are walking into a pre-written alignment, one designed long before your prayers even formed on your lips. There's a moment every believer experiences, the space between asking and receiving, the hush before manifestation. It's the pause where heaven tests your sight. Can you believe before you see? That's where you've been standing. And now, the stillness begins to hum with activity. The angels assigned to your purpose are no longer waiting, they're executing. We read in the book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 12, "From the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words." That verse is more than ancient text, it's a mirror. Heaven heard you the first time. Even when you thought your prayers vanished into silence, the answer was dispatched. But divine timing required divine readiness. And now both have finally met. Imagine the unseen realm like an orchestra. Each angel, each command, each miracle note waits for the precise cue. You've reached that moment. The conductor has raised his hand. The music begins. The sequence unfolds. Everything that was tangled starts to flow with impossible precision. You might not see it yet, but signs are surfacing. The coincidences that aren't coincidences, the inner peace that doesn't make sense, the message that arrives exactly when you need it. These are the footprints of angels, proof that heaven has stepped into your story. Sometimes, divine assistance doesn't come with wings and light. It comes as timing. It's the job that opens after rejection, the conversation that brings closure, the message that reminds you to keep going. You'll know it's heaven when it feels like peace wearing human skin. There's a man named Levi who once thought heaven had forgotten him. He prayed for years for a breakthrough that never came. Then, one ordinary morning, he woke up to find that everything he needed had quietly assembled itself. He didn't even realize the miracle had arrived until he looked back and saw that the journey itself had rearranged him into readiness. That's how heaven works, softly, strategically, suddenly. And now, chosen one, it's your turn. You've passed through the silence, walked through the refining, and now you stand in activation. The angels are not waiting for further instruction. They are moving because your endurance authorized them. Faith wasn't your waiting room, it was your key. When heaven begins to move like this, it invites your agreement. Agreement isn't noise, it's posture. It's when your heart whispers yes to what your eyes can't yet see. That whisper has power. It syncs your atmosphere with divine timing. So, pause for a moment. Let this settle. You are not alone in this unfolding. The heavenly hosts are coordinating what your hands could never organize. The same God who commands galaxies is now commanding your restoration. Every delay was a divine delay switch, ensuring that when the moment arrived, it would not slip from your grasp. And now, as a prophetic act of faith, I want you to write this number below, 222, not as superstition, but as symbolism. 2 is the number of agreement, and 222 represents divine alignment, the moment when heaven and earth move in unity. When you type it, you're not just commenting, you're coming into agreement with what is already in motion. You're saying, Lord, let my spirit align with your timing. Oh, that single act, that moment of faith, becomes a signal in the unseen. It's not about visibility, it's about vibration. Heaven hears the echo of agreement and responds with acceleration. Let that truth comfort you. Your miracle is not coming from a distance, it's unfolding from within the air around you. The angels are near, not imagined. The shift is happening, not someday, but now. This is your alignment moment. Stay still enough to feel it, strong enough to believe it, and humble enough to receive it. Heaven has unlocked your timing. The orchestration has begun, and the music it's being played for you. Before the table was set, before the oil flowed, before the applause of heaven echoed, there was silence long, heavy, and sacred. You might remember that season well. The waiting room of destiny. It's where patience feels like pain and time seems frozen. Yet something holy unfolds beneath the surface. That waiting wasn't wasted. It was the birthplace of your strength. Every chosen one must pass through the hidden years. They are not punishment. They are preparation. When nothing moves on the outside, everything grows on the inside. Faith learns how to breathe in the dark. Character builds its muscles in quiet resistance. The roots that hold great trees are never visible, yet they carry the whole weight of glory above them. So did you. You carried purpose while carrying pain. You held promises that looked impossible to others. You endured misunderstanding, isolation, and loss, not realizing you were in divine training. The quiet season wasn't meant to end you, it was meant to empty you, to make space for what heaven planned to pour next. It's said that before gold shines, it must lose its impurities. Likewise, before purpose shines, the heart must be purified from fear, pride, and dependence on validation. The silence wasn't God's absence, it was His surgery. He was removing what couldn't survive where you were going. As recorded in the book of Romans, chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. Those words define your journey. Perseverance built your spine. Character shaped your spirit. And hope taught your soul how to see light through cracks. Hope is not fragile optimism, it's divine endurance dressed in patience. There's an image of a potter at his wheel. He presses clay with firm hands, reshaping it again and again. Sometimes he pauses, not because he's unsure, but because perfection takes time. That pause is where you've lived between shaping and showing. The potter never left the wheel, his hands simply pressed with precision. During those quiet years, you were not overlooked, you were observed. Heaven was documenting your small obediences, your unseen acts of kindness, your restraint when you could have retaliated. These moments, unnoticed by people, became the foundation of your authority. Now, heaven trusts those who prove faithful in obscurity. When you look back, you'll see how everything connects: the loss that birthed wisdom, the waiting that deepened gratitude, the disappointments that sharpened discernment. God was not preparing a moment for you. He was preparing you for the moment. There was a woman named Elara who once prayed for God to use her voice. Yet for years, every door closed. Every opportunity faded. She felt silenced. Then one day, a friend invited her to speak at a small community gathering. Her words moved hearts, bringing healing in ways she didn't expect. Later, she realized that the years of silence had taught her to speak with compassion instead of pride. Heaven had not denied her voice, it had refined it. Your story carries that same truth. You were being refined for the right platform, the right audience, the right season. The silence was sacred. It tuned your spirit to heaven's frequency so that when the time came, your voice would carry weight, not noise. Every hidden season holds a quiet miracle, transformation. You may have felt invisible, but invisibility was insulation. While the world slept on your calling, heaven strengthened it. Like roots growing unseen beneath winter soil, your destiny was anchoring itself against future storms. Now that you stand in light, remember that stillness built your stability. Do not despise the years that felt wasted. They are the reason you can now hold what once would have crushed you. The delay was not denial, it was development. Some prayers were answered with silence because words couldn't teach what stillness could. God's silence was never rejection, it was revelation waiting to mature. He trusted you enough to be silent, knowing you'd stay. You learned to walk by faith, not applause. You learned to wait without bitterness. You learned to love without reward. That is heaven's greatest endorsement. So as you move forward, carry the lessons of your hidden years gently. Let humility be your crown and gratitude your garment. Remember that those who emerge from silence carry authority that noise can't counterfeit. You no longer need to chase opportunities. They will recognize the fragrance of preparation and find you. And when you meet others still walking through their waiting, remind them, silence is not the end. It's the soil of miracles. The roots of greatness always grow in quiet places. The years that seemed forgotten were the ones that made you unforgettable. There comes a moment when God no longer hides what He has been preparing. The table is set. The oil is poured. And suddenly you realize you are standing in the fulfillment of prayers that once felt forgotten. Heaven does not announce every victory with trumpets. Sometimes It simply pulls back the curtain and lets you see what's been waiting for you all along. You've walked through the shadows of doubt and silence, and now God begins to make his promise visible, not in secret, not behind closed doors, but in plain sight before those who once thought you would never rise. That is the nature of divine justice. God doesn't humiliate your enemies, he honors you in their presence. It is written in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 5, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows." And this is not a verse about vengeance, it's a picture of restoration. The table symbolizes vindication, the proof that your suffering was not wasted, that your waiting was not meaningless. When God seats you there, it's not to gloat, it's to glorify. The same ground where you once wept becomes the stage where he performs his goodness. You can almost see it now, a long table stretching across a valley once barren. The plates are set with peace, the cups filled with joy, and the air hums with quiet reverence. There is no bitterness here, only gratitude. This is what it means to be honored by heaven. Your presence becomes a declaration that grace wins. Think of Joseph in the palace, David with the crown, or Ruth in the fields she once gleaned from. Every one of them had a table moment, a time when what was broken was redeemed in full view. You are entering yours. For years, you served faithfully while unseen. You forgave when you could have fought back. You prayed for those who wounded you. You sowed kindness into soil that gave you no return. Heaven saw every act, every tear, every surrender. And now the harvest of integrity is ready to bloom. This table is more than favor, it's fulfillment. The people who once doubted you will see that your elevation wasn't built on pride, but on purity. The same ones who misunderstood your silence will witness the wisdom that silence produced. But notice this, God doesn't invite you to sit with resentment. He anoints you. First, that oil that flows over your head is not decoration, it's preparation. The bitterness must leave before the blessing can stay. You can't carry revenge into resurrection. The anointing oil also marks transition. In ancient times, oil meant appointment. It signified readiness for a new role. The moment it touched your head, your assignment changed. You are no longer a survivor, you are a steward of favor. The blessing you carry now isn't just for your comfort, it's for others' healing. It's strange how the same people who questioned your calling will now witness your crowning, but even that serves a divine purpose. It teaches them mercy, and it teaches you humility, because true victory isn't loud, it's luminous. It shines quietly, making no effort to prove itself. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. God has already spoken on your behalf through fruit. The open doors, the answered prayers, the peace in your eyes, these are testimonies louder than words. What once was whispered in prayer now echoes in public as proof of grace. Imagine yourself seated at that table. The air is warm, the light golden. You can feel peace settling over your shoulders like a soft robe. Every bite tastes like restoration. Every breath feels like home. You realize vindication was never about triumphing over others. It was about harmony with heaven's justice. The real victory is that your heart stayed pure while the world turned cold. This abundance doesn't shout, it glows. The table is a sanctuary, not a spotlight. When God fills your cup, it doesn't overflow for you to hoard. It spills out for others to drink. Rest now. You don't have to prove anything. The presence of your enemies no longer stings. It simply confirms the stage has changed. The same valley that once echoed with tears now resounds with heaven's laughter. You are seated, anointed, restored. The table before you is not just a reward, it's a reminder. The God who hid you has now revealed you, not to boast, but to bless. And as you sit in that holy stillness, remember this: feast never ends. Grace refills the cup, mercy resets the table, and love keeps the invitation open forever. The noise of the world has tried to drown out the quiet whisper of God in your heart. You've heard many voices: fear, doubt, regret, but deep inside, one voice has never stopped speaking. It's the same voice that called you out of darkness, the same one that guided you through storms and silence. And now, after everything, you are beginning to recognize it clearly, the voice of God within you. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It waits for stillness to be heard. This voice has been there all along, beneath the chaos, gently steering you back whenever you drifted. You mistook it for instinct, intuition, or coincidence, but it was always Him. The same Spirit that hovered over creation hovers now inside you, reminding you that you were never alone. According to the writings in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." That verse isn't a metaphor, it's your reality. You've been following His voice even when you didn't realize it. Every time you forgave instead of retaliating, stayed when you wanted to run, prayed when you had no strength, that was obedience responding to the whisper. The voice of God doesn't control, it calls. And when your spirit answers, heaven aligns. There's a story of a man named Ezra. For years, he wrestled with choices, unsure which direction to take. He fasted, prayed, and yet silence lingered. One morning, while walking in the park, a simple thought rose in his heart: take the path of peace. It wasn't thunder or fire, it was peace that settled deep inside. He followed it, and months later realized that single whisper had changed his life forever. That's how God speaks, not always through miracles, but through stillness. He doesn't need volume to have authority. His voice creates clarity. It divides confusion like light breaking through fog. The more you quiet the noise of fear, the clearer His direction becomes. The challenge isn't that God isn't speaking, it's that we've forgotten how to listen. The modern world glorifies loudness, but heaven moves in quiet strength. The Spirit's voice won't fight for your attention, it waits for your surrender. Think of a compass. It doesn't argue with the traveler. It simply points true north. That's what God's voice does. It doesn't demand, it directs. It doesn't condemn, it corrects. The whisper of heaven will never lead you toward pride, fear, or shame. It will always guide you toward peace, truth, and love. You've probably felt it lately, that strange calm in your spirit, even when circumstances don't make sense. That's not ignorance, it's insight. Heaven is teaching you to trust what can't yet be seen, to move when peace says go, and wait when peace says stay. When you follow that still voice, you step into diviner rhythm. You stop forcing doors open. You stop begging for signs. You begin to flow, not strive. And in that flow, miracles happen naturally, without strain, without spectacle. Now, As you read these words, pause for a moment. Silence the noise. Close your eyes if you can. Feel the quiet hum inside you. That peace you sense right now, that's Him. That's the same voice that spoke creation into being. Now, speaking courage into you. He's not saying, do more. He's saying, be still and know. He's not demanding perfection. He's inviting closeness. When you learn to listen to this voice, you'll never be lost again. Because the voice that guides you is the same one that guards you. And when you hear Him this time, don't just acknowledge it, respond. Declare your recognition. Not as a ritual, but as a relationship. Type this in the comments below. I hear clearly. Say it out loud if you can. Let heaven hear your agreement. When you write, I hear clearly, you're not making a statement of pride. You're making a prophetic declaration. You're saying, I choose to trust the whisper again. It's your way of tuning your heart back to heaven's frequency. Every time you affirm that truth, confusion loses its grip, and clarity begins to grow. The same spirit that hovered over your chaos is now forming creation within you. You're not just learning to listen, you're learning to live, led by the voice of God. That is where real power begins, not in thunder, but in whisper. When you say, I hear clearly, you're doing more than typing words, you're aligning heaven and earth. Those 3 words become an anchor, steadying your spirit when fear whispers louder. They remind you that divine clarity is not earned, it's inherited by every heart willing to listen. You have walked through the valley, waited in silence, and learned to recognize heaven's whisper. Now the sound around you changes. It's not thunder, it's invitation. God is calling you not just to receive, but to release. Not just to hold blessing, but to let it flow. You've been filled now. It's time to pour. Every chosen one eventually reaches this point. The shift from being carried by grace to carrying grace. What once sustained you is now meant to sustain others. The miracle wasn't meant to end with you. It was designed to multiply through you. This is how heaven's current keeps moving, from one grateful heart to another. There's a river inside every believer, a stream of mercy flowing from the throne through human compassion. But rivers dry up when they're dammed, and blessings grow stagnant when they stop at us. When you open your hands, that river finds its course again, giving, sharing, encouraging. These aren't obligations, they're how you keep heaven's water clear. According to what's written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 7, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. That verse doesn't talk about pressure, it talks about posture. Cheerful giving means you recognize that what you hold was never yours to hoard, it was heaven's to distribute through you. And in that flow, you find freedom. Think of this message as a seed carried by the wind. When you like it, you send a small gust that lifts it higher. When you share it, you release that seed to fall into new soil across distant fields. And when you subscribe, you become the gardener who keeps returning, tending the roots so that the light of truth keeps growing. And if your spirit ever whispers to go deeper, to donate, see it as placing a single flame in a row of candles. One light ignites another until darkness begins to retreat. You're not paying for the flame, you're helping it travel. You're like, share, subscribe, and donation are not tasks, they're wings. Together, they form a flock of light that soars across unseen skies, carrying hope where algorithms rarely reach. You may never meet those who are touched, but heaven does, and it remembers. Picture this, a quiet river at dawn. Each ripple catches sunlight and sends it outward. That's what your engagement does. It takes one reflection of grace and multiplies it endlessly. And when generosity stirs in you, don't resist it. Let it move naturally, like a wave returning to the shore that shaped it. Giving is never a loss, it's a rhythm. The hand that opens to pour also opens to receive. When you like, imagine your touch as a drop of dew, refreshing a thirsty leaf. When you share, see your gesture as releasing a dove into skies, still learning how to heal. When you subscribe, think of it as anchoring another stone in the bridge of light we're building together. When you donate, know that you are adding oil to a lamp that never stops burning fuel for others who are still finding their way home. Nothing here is demanded. It's invitation, not imposition, beauty, not burden. Heaven never forces participation, it simply reveals opportunity. If this message has warmed your heart, let gratitude move freely. Like if peace stirred in you, share if someone else might need that same peace. Subscribe to walk beside this growing constellation of hearts. And if love leads you, give with joy, because every ripple of kindness returns multiplied. You are part of a sacred chain of light, each action a spark, each spark a promise. The flames you tend today will guide someone else tomorrow. Your generosity is not payment, it's poetry. And as the final echoes of this message fade, imagine standing at the edge of a wide river at sunset. The water reflects streaks of gold and rose, and every ripple carries a memory of generosity, what you've given your time, your attention. Your faith flows onward to places your feet will never touch, lighting unseen shores with quiet hope. There's a beauty in knowing that heaven measures value differently. It doesn't count by size, but by sincerity. A whispered prayer, a shared word, a single act of kindness, all are currency in the kingdom of light. What leaves your hand never leaves God's sight. So breathe in peace and look forward. You've sown light, and light always returns. It will find you in unexpected laughter, in strength renewed, in joy that doesn't fade. The same hand that received your offering is already preparing your harvest. You can feel it before you see it. The air itself has changed. The heaviness that once clung to your spirit has lifted. You wake in the morning and something feels different, though you can't name it at first. Then it dawns on you. The atmosphere around your life has shifted. The clouds that hung low for so long have scattered, and light pours through in quiet, steady beams. This is what happens when heaven turns its face toward you again. The storm doesn't vanish in an instant, but its power over you dissolves. The same winds that once battered your heart now carry whispers of peace. You've entered a season where what resisted you begins to release you. The spiritual climate that surrounded your struggle is giving way to grace. Sometimes, it's not the world that changes first, it's you. The atmosphere responds to your transformation. Where fear once lived, faith now breathes. Where anxiety once echoed, assurance hums softly. God has shifted the temperature of your soul, warming what was frozen and calming what once burned out of control. The Word of God declares in the book of Isaiah, Chapter 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. This is not poetic language, it's a spiritual reality. Light has substance. It transforms everything it touches. When the glory of the Lord rises upon you, shadows lose authority. The things that once hid you no longer can. People begin to notice not because you seek attention, but because your presence feels different. You carry light now, unforced, unspoken, undeniable. You'll start to see evidence of this shift in small ways. First, the conversations that once drained you now feel easier. The places that used to feel heavy become welcoming. Even your own thoughts begin to sound more hopeful, more aligned. You no longer rehearse old pain, you anticipate new purpose. That's the mark of a changed atmosphere. It pulls you forward instead of anchoring you to the past. It's like stepping out of a cave after years of twilight. At first, the light almost hurts your eyes. You squint, unsure whether you're ready, but as your vision adjusts, the colors return. The blues are bluer, the greens richer, the world alive again. You realize it was never the sun that dimmed. It was just your perspective learning how to see again. This shift isn't emotional, it's spiritual. Heaven has rebalanced the scales around your life. What was crooked is straightening. What was delayed is accelerating. The same battles that used to exhaust you now crumble at your quiet prayers. You don't need to shout to move mountains anymore. Your stillness carries authority. Think of a tree after rain. The ground around it is softer, its leaves cleaner, its roots deeper. That's you now, refreshed by storms you thought would destroy you. You've learned to draw strength from what once drained you. Your spirit is rooted deeper than ever. And that's why your atmosphere responds differently. Peace has weight. It isn't the absence of chaos, it's the presence of divine control. It's like standing in the eye of a hurricane. The winds still roar around. But inside the circle, there's calm. That's what heaven has built around you, a sacred stillness that no circumstance can disturb. Even people around you may start to sense it. They won't have words for it, but they'll feel comfort when you enter a room. You've become a walking sanctuary, a reminder that peace isn't fragile. It's contagious. The same spirit that steadies you now overflows to steady others. Don't rush this season. Let peace do its work. The light doesn't rush to prove itself. It simply rises. So will you. You don't need to convince anyone that you've changed. The glow on your countenance will speak louder than explanations ever could. There's a phrase whispered in the heavenly realm, the climate of favor. You've entered it. Opportunities will begin to open effortlessly because your spirit and surroundings are finally aligned. The weight you carried was never meant to stay. It was meant to teach you balance so you could walk in new air. Remember this: spiritual weather always follows spiritual posture. When your heart turns toward gratitude, storms lose their grip. When your words agree with peace, your environment obeys. You are no longer reacting to the world, you're recalibrating it. So breathe deeply. The air is different now because you are different. The atmosphere that once opposed you now embraces you. This is not a temporary calm, it's a permanent shift. Heaven has changed the forecast, and everything around you must now respond. The confirmation always comes softly, not in thunder or spectacle, but in the gentle unfolding of things you once prayed for. You begin to notice signs, small, sacred echoes of divine alignment. What you thought were coincidences start to weave into patterns. A name mentioned. A door reopened. A verse that appears twice in one day. Heaven is speaking through the details. And for the first time in a long while, you see it. Prophetic confirmation rarely arrives with noise. It comes in whispers that require attention. That's how God ensures that only those who listen with their hearts will recognize His fingerprints. You, chosen one, have reached that place of discernment. The silence that once frustrated you has trained your spirit to notice what others overlook. As written in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay." Oh, this moment you're living in right now, it's that appointed time. What was written long ago about your destiny is beginning to unfold exactly as it was meant to. The pauses, the setbacks, the seasons of uncertainty, they were all intervals between promise and manifestation. And now, the vision that tarried is finally arriving. Look closely at your days. The evidence is already there. The timing of conversations, the opportunities aligning effortlessly, the peace that settles before decisions. It's all heaven confirming that you're on the right path. Confirmation doesn't always appear as a miracle. Sometimes it looks like a door closing gently, so you won't walk through the wrong one. There's a story about a woman named Amara. She once prayed for a sign to know if she should leave her job and pursue ministry. For months, there was silence. Then, one morning, her supervisor approached her unexpectedly and said, "I don't know why, but I think you're meant for something more." She wept quietly, not because of the words, but because they echoed what she'd heard in prayer weeks before. That's how heaven confirms through ordinary vessels carrying extraordinary timing. You may not receive thunderbolts of revelation, but you will feel a quiet yes in your spirit. That peace you can't explain, that's your confirmation. God doesn't need to shout when your heart is tuned to hear whispers. Even nature joins this rhythm. The same God who aligns stars in galaxies also aligns the steps of His children. Every leaf that falls does so on schedule. How much more precise, then, is His timing over your life? The signs are not random, they are relational. They happen not to you, but with you as part of heaven's ongoing conversation with your faith. So when confirmation comes, don't rush it. Don't demand more signs as proof. Sometimes the next instruction from God is not a word, but a knowing. Learn to rest in that knowing. The mature believer doesn't chase wonders. They walk with wonder already within them. Right now, you stand in that sacred in-between, the realization that what you believed is becoming visible. It's a quiet kind of joy, the kind that doesn't need applause, only acknowledgement. You don't need to convince anyone else. Heaven has already written the validation into your atmosphere. And now, as a sign of faith and agreement with what is unfolding, I want you to write this number below. 555. Not as ritual, but as remembrance. The number 555 symbolizes divine transition and grace multiplied. It marks the movement from waiting to walking, from promise to presence. When you type it, you're not commanding heaven, you're aligning with it. You're saying, "I recognize what you're doing, Lord, and I'm ready to move with it." That act of faith becomes your seal. Heaven honors acknowledgement. When you publicly agree with what God is doing privately, It opens new dimensions of favor, not because of performance, but because of partnership. Your confirmation season isn't just about signs, it's about sight. God isn't merely showing you what He's doing, He's teaching you how to see like He sees. To notice the divine in the daily, to find sacred rhythm in ordinary time. You'll look back on this moment and realize it wasn't the beginning of something new, it was the revealing of something that had been growing all along. Every unanswered prayer, every lonely night, every hidden act of obedience, all converging into this single truth. The vision was never late, it was right on time. Type it now, 555, and let your spirit agree. This is heaven's way of saying, you're not waiting anymore. You're walking in what was promised. There's a kind of pain that doesn't announce itself with tears or noise. It sits quietly in the soul. Heavy, but invisible. You know it, the ache of waiting too long. The tension between faith and fatigue. It feels like something inside you wants to be born but doesn't know how. That's the weight of glory pressing against the walls of your spirit. It's not the end, it's the beginning of birthing. Heaven always brings forth new seasons through contraction. Breakthrough never enters the world without pressure. Just as the earth groans before rain and creation trembles before dawn, your spirit groans before manifestation. The discomfort you've been feeling isn't proof of abandonment, it's proof that something divine is about to emerge. We find in the book of John, chapter 16, verse 21, a woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come, but when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born into the world. Oh, that verse doesn't just describe motherhood, it describes every believer carrying promise. You've been pregnant with purpose, the dreams, the visions, the calling. They've been growing silently inside you. The contractions of disappointment, the stretching of your faith, the sleepless nights of uncertainty, all were part of heaven's labor. Birthing glory always hurts because the spiritual womb must stretch to contain eternal things. The greater the calling, the deeper the stretch. But take heart, the pain is not punishment. It's proof of potential. Every groan has meaning. Every tear waters the promise. There's a story of a man named Jonah, not the prophet, swallowed by the fish, but a quiet man who once told his mentor, "I feel like everything is breaking." His mentor smiled and said, "No, son, you're not breaking, you're birthing." That's what God says to you now. The breaking sensation you feel is simply the shell of an old version of yourself cracking open to release the new. You might feel exhausted, as if faith itself has become heavy. But remember this, even Jesus, before the resurrection, went through the agony of Gethsemane. Glory always demands surrender before it gives birth to victory. Pain is the passageway to promise. Think of the seed buried in soil. Before it can grow, it must break. The darkness it sits in isn't a grave, it's a womb. Something is shifting underground, long before it sprouts above. Your hidden work, your prayers, your unseen endurance, they've been building roots deep enough to sustain what's coming. Heaven never rushes birth. When the fullness of time arrives, the pain intensifies, but so does the promise. You may have noticed this lately. The resistance feels stronger, the obstacles heavier, the emotions sharper. That's not regression, it's progression. The closer you get to break through, the tighter the pressure becomes. But here's the miracle, pain and promise coexist. They're not opposites, they're partners. God allows tension so that you'll learn to push, not bunits. What once terrified you now teaches you. What once felt like chaos now feels like calibration. You're learning the rhythm of divine labor, the inhale of trust and the exhale of surrender. During birth, a mother doesn't focus on the pain. She listens for the voice of the one guiding her through it. So must you. Heaven is your midwife now, whispering between contractions, breathe, push. You're almost there. Every contraction brings you closer to clarity. Every shaking strips away what cannot stay. The pain itself is prophecy. It declares that the promise is near. There's a moment in every birth where silence fills the room. The world holds its breath. Then, suddenly, a cry breaks through, and life enters. That's where you are right now, in the silence before the sound. Heaven has leaned close, waiting for your breakthrough cry. Don't rush it. Don't fear it. Let the process complete its perfect work. For soon, the very thing that caused your tears will become your testimony. You will look back and say, "It had to happen this way." No, after the birth, the pain doesn't vanish. It transforms. It becomes strength, empathy, wisdom. You'll carry a tenderness for others, walking through their own contractions of calling. You'll speak not from theory but from experience, from the sacred, knowing that pain can be holy too. What's forming inside you is not small. It carries weight, destiny, and legacy. Heaven shows your womb, your life, your voice, your history to bring forth something the world hasn't seen before. That's why it's been hard, but it's also why it will be worth it. Soon, the labor will shift to laughter. The same mouth that cried will sing. The same hands that trembled will lift in triumph. The same eyes that wept in darkness will behold light, too brilliant to explain. You are not breaking, you are birthing. And what's being born will outlive the pain that brought it forth. After the birth comes the stillness, the quiet moment when heaven itself seems to hold its breath. Everything that was trembling inside you settles. And for the first time in a long time, peace feels real. You can sense it in your bones. That gentle assurance that the battle you thought would last forever has finally turned into blessing. This is the part few talk about, the holy calm after breakthrough. It's not loud or spectacular. It's soft, sacred, and deeply stabilizing. You're learning that the aftermath of miracles is not chaos, but clarity. When the noise fades, you begin to hear the subtle rhythm of grace guiding your every move. We read in the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 10, "For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from his." Oh, that verse doesn't describe laziness, it describes trust. The rest of God is not absence of activity, it's the presence of alignment. It means you no longer move from anxiety, but from assurance. You no longer strive to make things happen, you move because they're meant to. You've stepped into that rest now. The striving has ended. The inner war between fear and faith has finally found resolution. You've realized that what's meant for you can't be missed, and what passes you by was never yours to keep. This awareness brings a peace so deep that it becomes the very air you breathe. Imagine a lake after a storm. The surface still ripples, but beneath, the water is steady. The winds that once roared now whisper through the trees. That's your spirit right now, steady beneath the remnants of the storm. You are not the same person who entered the valley. You carry quiet authority now. Your scars no longer sting, they shine. They've become sacred symbols of survival. reminders that every wound can become a window for light. You no longer need to hide them. Instead, they speak for you, saying, "I've been through fire, and I did not burn." This is what divine rest looks like. It's not the end of movement. It's the end of frantic movement. You no longer chase what you've already been chosen for. You live slower now, more intentional, more aware. You understand that God's pace is perfection, and that delay is often His way of deepening your dependence. You begin to notice small miracles again, the way light filters through morning curtains, the warmth of quiet gratitude, the laughter of someone you almost lost. You see beauty in simplicity because you've learned that peace doesn't demand attention, it just is. Rest doesn't mean inactivity, it means inhabiting grace. Every step you take now is rooted, not rushed. You've discovered that purpose flows naturally when peace becomes your posture. Think of an eagle soaring through open skies. It doesn't flap frantically, it glides on invisible wind. That's how you move now. What once required your strength now moves by spirit. You've learned the secret, to soar without strain. There was a man named Elias who once said, "After my breakthrough, I didn't know what to do with the quiet. At first, he mistook calm for emptiness. But then he realized that quiet was fullness disguised. That's where you are now learning to live, in fulfillment, without the need for constant fire. The miracle is not gone, it's matured. You are being taught to rest in revelation. The same voice that thundered in storms now speaks in whispers. The same God who parted waters now walks beside you on calm shores. The sacred tension between doing and being has dissolved. You have learned to simply be, and in that being, you reflect heaven more accurately. Because when your soul is still, it becomes a mirror for divine movement. Peace is not passive, it's powerful. It carries authority that noise can't counterfeit. You've seen that authority in others, those whose calm changes rooms. That's you now. You walk in without striving, and peace precedes you. The journey hasn't ended. It has transformed. You're no longer chasing fire, you're tending embers that never go out. The light you carry is steady, enduring. You don't need constant proof of God's presence. You've become proof yourself. When people see you now, they'll sense it. They won't know what changed, but they'll feel safer, lighter, steadier. That's what happens when someone abides in divine rest. You become an atmosphere of peace. So let yourself breathe deeply. You've come through darkness and discovered dawn. You've seen promise unfold and pain redeemed. You've learned that stillness is not stagnation, it's strength under control. The same God who fought for you now rests with you. The war is over. The striving has ceased. And the sound that remains is not silence, it's serenity. You are home. Not in a place, but in a presence. There is something sacred about what follows peace, the gentle hum of gratitude. It doesn't demand attention or applause. It moves like breath. Quiet and natural. You begin to see life differently. Not as a collection of moments to survive, but as a continuous offering of grace. Everything around you feels softer now. Even time itself seems to slow down, as though heaven has synchronized its rhythm with your heartbeat. You've learned that peace is not the end of the journey, it's the new foundation. From it, blessings begin to ripple outward like circles on still water, and every ripple touches another soul. That is how light travels from heart to heart. through unseen acts of kindness, through the quiet courage to share what once healed you. The Word of God tells us in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 16, "Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." This isn't about recognition, it's about reflection. Light never draws attention to itself. It simply reveals what's true. The message you've carried, the transformation you've lived. It isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to illuminate others who are still searching for their way home. And this is where your participation becomes part of the miracle. When you engage, you extend the light. When you interact, you keep the current of heaven alive. Imagine this message as a candle on a windowsill during the night. When you light it, you're shielding the flame from the wind, ensuring it doesn't fade. When you share it, you're opening another window in another house, allowing the glow to spread across darkened streets. When you subscribe, you're not signing up for content, you're joining a circle of light bearers who return again and again to keep the fire alive. Each gesture, however small, becomes part of a sacred ecosystem of encouragement. You may never see the faces your light reaches, but heaven does. Every act of engagement creates a ripple that travels farther than data or numbers. It travels into the spirit. And when your heart stirs to give, to donate, imagine it not as giving away, but as planting another flame. Your offering is like oil poured quietly into lamps across the world, fuel for messages that keep faith alive in the hearts of the weary. No one demands it. There's no pressure, no expectation, only invitation. Because light shared willingly always burns brighter. There's an old story of a village that lost power for weeks. Every night, one woman placed a single lantern in her window. Her light was small, but it became the village's landmark. One by one, neighbors followed her example until the entire street glowed again. That's how your kindness works. Your single act of support can ignite hope in places you'll never visit. Your like is a spark. Your share is a torch passed forward. Your subscription is a promise to keep returning to the light. Your donation, if you ever feel led, is oil that keeps this sanctuary burning when others need it most. And one more thing, if this message has touched something inside you, take a breath and leave a comment below. Write what the light has meant to you. It's not for validation, it's for connection. Every comment is like another star appearing in a sky once dark. A visible reminder that none of us walk alone. Participation here is never obligation, it's beauty in motion. Heaven never coerces, it only calls, and every act done from love, no matter how small, becomes part of heaven's choreography of restoration. This isn't about building a brand, it's about building bridges. Every time you respond, you become part of a quiet network of souls saying, "We still believe in hope." Now, imagine your heart as a lantern suspended in the night sky. Every act of love, every word, every comment of gratitude sends out another beam. Together, we become constellations, individual lights, forming patterns that tell heaven's story on the dark canvas of the world. So, if this message has touched you, let your heart decide how to echo it. Like if it resonated. Share if it reminded you of hope. Comment what this light awakened in you. Subscribe if you wish to walk beside this growing constellation of faith. And if you ever feel called to give, do it as an act of worship. Not wait. Because what we build together isn't made of stone or algorithm, It's built from courage, compassion, and trust. It's a digital cathedral where every small act of light becomes a stained glass window reflecting grace. You are not obligated, you are invited, and your yes, however quiet, becomes music in the halls of heaven. Your kindness fuels eternity in ways you'll never measure, and the flame you protect today might be the miracle someone finds tomorrow. After light spreads, it doesn't rush to prove itself, it simply stays. That's what happens now. The illumination you once sought to understand has become part of your nature. You no longer chase signs or wonder if you are still chosen, you just are. There is a quiet confidence in your walk, a peace that doesn't need validation. The world hasn't changed much, but you have, and that changes everything. The light within you doesn't flicker with circumstance anymore. It burns steadily, a reflection of what endurance has made permanent. You've learned that joy is not a reaction, it's a residence. You've learned that faith is not a feeling, it's a framework. This stability is heaven's final gift to those who have endured the refining, waited through the silence, and stood through the storms. There's a beauty in this stage of your journey, a maturity that words can barely describe. It's like standing on a mountain after years of climbing. You don't shout from the summit, you simply breathe and take it in. The view isn't loud, but it's vast. You can see where you've been, where you're going, and you finally understand that every valley had meaning. Every detour was part of direction. As revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 18, the path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. That's your life now, a dawn unfolding. Not an explosion, but a gradual radiance. Each morning brings a deeper glow, not because everything is perfect, but because you carry peace into imperfection. The world around you might still tremble, but you've become unshakable. You move differently now. Where once you reacted in fear, you now respond with grace. Where once you hurried to fix, you now wait to understand. Wisdom has replaced worry. The years that felt wasted were actually weaving your discernment. The silence taught you how to listen, and the storms taught you how to stand. There's a quiet miracle in being unhurried. You no longer force what God has already aligned. You've learned that timing is sacred, that what is meant for you will never miss you. And what misses you was mercy, not loss. That revelation alone carries enough peace to still a lifetime of striving. Imagine walking through a forest after rain. The earth smells alive. Every leaf glistens, and sunlight filters gently through the canopy. That's what this season feels like. Renewal that doesn't shout. You sense heaven breathing through everything, through laughter, through silence. Even through ordinary moments that used to feel small, the sacred hides in simplicity now. This peace doesn't remove responsibility, it refines it. You've become a steward, not a struggler. You understand that influence isn't about being seen, but about being sent. Wherever you go, you leave. Traces of tranquility rooms feel lighter, conversations softer, decisions wiser. You carry heaven's tone now, not through sermons, but through presence. It's here, in this quiet maturity, that gratitude takes its deepest root. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "Thank you." You realize how every unanswered prayer carried hidden protection, how every delay disguised preparation. Gratitude turns your memory into worship, transforming even old pain into praise. You're no longer haunted by the past, you're healed by it. The memories that once hurt now shine with understanding. You see God's fingerprints on what once felt like fragments. You can finally say, it all mattered. Even that. And this peace, this depth, this grace isn't the end of your story. It's the strength from which all future chapters will flow. You've been through fire, but the flame has become your teacher, not your enemy. You've been through waiting, but the silence has turned into your sanctuary. This phase of your journey is what prophets once called the settling. It's when heaven anchors what it has built in you. You are no longer moved by every wind of opinion, fear, or circumstance. Your roots have found water, and your branches reach for light. That's what divine stability looks like. And yet, even in rest, God continues to unfold new dimensions. Peace isn't stillness, it's fertile. It births creativity, compassion, and quiet courage. You'll find yourself dreaming again, but this time without desperation. You'll build again, but this time without striving. Everything you touch will carry ease because you're no longer trying to make things happen, you're letting them happen. You've reached the place where faith has matured into friendship with God. You don't fear His silence anymore, you've come to treasure it. You recognize His presence not just in miracles but in the mundane. The line between sacred and ordinary has disappeared because you've learned that for the chosen, every moment is holy. This is what it means to be whole, to move through life no longer searching for signs of favor, but walking as favor itself. The final movement of your journey doesn't arrive with fanfare, it unfolds in reverence. You've walked through fire and silence, through waiting and wonder, and now you find yourself standing at the threshold of completion, not an ending, but a quiet becoming. The path behind you glows faintly, lined with the lessons that shaped your soul. You realize it wasn't the destination that changed you, it was the walk itself. Completion, in heaven's language, isn't about arrival, it's about alignment. It means your spirit, your purpose, and your heart finally move in unison. You no longer chase meaning, you carry it. The restlessness that once lived in your bones has transformed into calm confidence. What you were searching for was never far away. It was waiting for you to become ready to hold it. As declared in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That promise hums softly in your spirit. You know now that nothing God starts ever stays unfinished. Every detour, every delay, every heartbreak, all were ingredients in the divine masterpiece that is still unfolding. Heaven is not done with you. It's simply resting between brushstrokes. You stand now in the rhythm of completion where striving gives way to surrender. There's no anxiety here, no need to prove, no desire to rush. You move with the flow of grace, trusting that every step still carries purpose. You don't need to understand everything, you just need to stay open. Imagine a sculptor standing before the finished piece. The marble once rough, now smooth and radiant, still bears traces of the chisel, but instead of shame, those marks are beauty, evidence of process. That's you. The lines of your story are not flaws, they're fingerprints of the Creator. What once felt broken now gleams as testimony. You've become something holy, a living testament to endurance. a vessel of quiet authority. The strength you carry is not loud, it's luminous. It doesn't need to shout because it shines. Those who encounter you now may not understand your peace, but they'll feel it. It will rest upon them like morning dew, soft yet undeniable. The final revelation of the chosen is not power, it's peace. Power conquers, but peace transforms. You've discovered that gentleness can move mountains, that silence can speak louder than sermons, that kindness can break chains. Heaven doesn't crown the loudest, it crowns the faithful. And faithfulness is exactly what you've become. Think of the seed once buried deep. It never saw sunlight for months. Yet it kept growing towards something it couldn't see. When it finally broke through, it didn't boast, it simply bloomed. That's what you're doing now, blooming quietly into the fullness of everything God planted in you. Completion feels like gratitude. You look back, not with regret, but with awe. You see how every no protected you, how every delay redirected you, how every fall humbled you. Grace has rewritten your understanding of success. It's no longer about doing more, but about being fully present where you are. The chosen don't seek applause, they seek alignment. You've found that alignment, that sweet center where heaven's will and your willingness meet. It's not a place of exhaustion, but of expansion. From here, everything that flows through you will carry the fragrance of heaven, gentle, healing, and unmistakable. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it now, the steady heartbeat of heaven pulsing within your chest. The same rhythm that created galaxies now sustains your breath. You've become part of the divine symphony, one note among billions, perfectly placed and perfectly heard. Completion doesn't mean the journey ends, it means you're ready for what's next. The horizon ahead still calls, not as a demand, but as an invitation. You will keep walking, keep shining, keep breathing grace into places that have forgotten what hope sounds like. You've learned that being chosen was never about standing above others, it was about standing with them, carrying light where darkness once lived. That's the quiet glory of the chosen, to walk humbly while heaven walks within. So now, as the final page of this chapter turns, you rest not in exhaustion, but in fulfillment. The fire has done its work, the silence has taught its song, and your soul has found its rhythm. The story continues, but the striving has ended. You are whole, you are steady, you are light carried in human form, and wherever you go from here, the path will recognize you, because creation always remembers the footsteps of the chosen. And now, as the final echoes fade, let this be your moment to breathe. What began as a whisper has become a journey of awakening. You've walked through silence and fire, through faith and fulfillment, and here you stand, radiant and renewed. Heaven hasn't finished with you. It has only begun to unfold new layers of purpose through your story. If this message has stirred something within you, let it speak back through you. When you like this message, it's as if you're lighting a small lantern of gratitude, one that tells heaven you received the word. When you share it, you extend that light, sending it into hearts that still wait for dawn. And when you subscribe, you're joining a family of torchbearers who keep coming together to protect the flame. And if your spirit ever whispers to go further, to donate, see it not as giving away, but as sowing light. Every seed you plant here grows into messages that travel where hope is scarce. You're not financing a platform, you're fueling a movement of faith across unseen borders. Take a quiet moment. 2. To comment below. Write what this journey has meant to you. Your words might be the exact healing someone else needs to read. Every comment becomes a thread of connection, stitching hearts together across distance and time. This is not obligation, it's invitation. The beauty of light is that it never asks permission to shine, it just does. So let your light move freely. Like, share, comment, subscribe, or give, not because you must, but because something holy in you wants to. Together, we build a living constellation, one spark at a time, until the world feels a little less dark.